Hey everyone, Brandon here with Galway Precision. Today we're going to go over the installation of our newest flat face trigger for the Bersa BP9 and BP380cc series of pistols. This trigger's name is the Galvarino. Where did we come up with that? Well, Galvarino was a Mapuche Indian in the mid-1500s. He died November 30th, 1557 at the hands of General Mendoza, who had been sent by the Spanish to basically start wiping out the Indian tribes in South America around Argentina, Chile, and all that. And obviously, you know, conquistadors, that's what they do, they conquer. Well, he wasn't too keen on that. Had fought them on and off, was eventually captured, and the first time they captured him, they cut off both his hands and sent him back to his people. So when he got back to his people, rather than give up and lay down and die, he tied knives to his arms and his stumps and said, if I cannot kill them or fight this way, then I'll kill them with my teeth. Led 3,500 Mapuche back to fight for about an hour or two. Mendoza finally did break them, but it took twice as many conquistadors to fight off the Mapuche and be able to defeat them. So it's a real fitting name for what is actually a really nice small single stack concealed carry pistol. A lot of people, I think, write off Bersa just because of the name, but they actually make really good stuff. And they do make things other than PPK knockoffs, and the BP9cc is one of those things that's actually very nice. Now, as you can see, there's no safety blade. Reason being, when we get inside to the trigger pack, you'll see why they did that. What they've done is developed a system that is an inertia drop safety, so you can drop it and the trigger won't swing. Triggers want to drop back, so the end has got no weight to it, but if you were to drop it, it can't go off, because what it does is there's a yoke in here that shifts backwards, moves the entire trigger bar and everything out of the way, so that the striker is pulled further back rather than being able to actually release. And it'll make more sense when we get into it. But I figured, doing some research, the Galvarino would be a good name for this trigger, because anytime you're pulling your self-defense pistol out, it's a fight for your life. So let's go over tools we're going to need. You need your bench block, you need some small needle nose pliers, you need your 3/32 punch, a small flathead screwdriver, your brass and polymer hammer, and of course your trigger and pistol. So let's go ahead and lock and clear. We are visually and physically empty. Now, the one thing I don't like about the BP9 is, compared to the BP380, this does have a magazine disconnect safety in it. So you cannot strip it without the magazine in. So definitely make sure your magazine is empty. Double check that you are visually and physically empty, and go ahead and pop your mag out long enough to push the takedown out, and then you're going to put your mag back in, so you can pull the trigger, get the slide off. Alright, we're going to take our magazine, set it off to the side, take your bench block, flip it to the flat side, and take our 3/32 punch. This locking block pin is held in by tension from the guide rod when it's all locked in place, so it really shouldn't take much more than a good steady push. If it does, just give it a light tap and it'll pop right out. Alright, so we're going to set our pin, our locking block off to the side. We are now ready to remove the entire trigger pack. This whole chassis comes out as one piece, just like so. You can see your two arms here on the back of the trigger pack. They will go into these two holes, square holes in the grip frame. Alright, so we'll set that off to the side. Now we're going to go ahead and push out our trigger pivot pin. Alright, now unfortunately you do have to remove the sear spring, and the sear pin to get the whole trigger bar out, as the sear spring and pin all sit in the center of the actual trigger. That's your lifter. It's all part of the trigger bar. So push that out like so. I'm going to set our sear spring there. Go ahead and pull up on everything, get your trigger bar out, your sear will drop out, set it off to the side. Alright, now it's going to be hard to make out but you may be able to see where the spring sits is a cutout point on the pin. The longer part of said pin goes to the right, shorter part to the left. So you're going to drive out from left to right so we don't tear up our spring. So minimal amount of ability to mess up the spring, so that if it flexes, we're not beating, and that whole time the edge is grabbing the spring and just messing it up. All right, so we're going to take our hammer. Let's see, sometimes it'll do that. If it does that, go ahead and take your needle nose pliers, grab the spring. If you can't get it that way, take your flathead, work it all past the spring set and the trigger bar, just like that. Now when you go to pull this out, make sure you do what I just did. Keep your thumb in front of it, because this spring is pretty stout. It doesn't feel like it when you're actually pulling the trigger, but when we go to put it back in, you'll see what I'm talking about. It's under quite a bit of tension, so it has a tendency to want to fly off, and it's not a whole lot of fun to try and track it down. So now, here's our pin. So you see why we went left to right, because we want the least amount here of interference. Whereas if we go this way, we've got a lot more driving to do before we work our way past the pin, the spring rather. So then we're going to remove our yoke from the trigger. We're done with our stock trigger. Put that in your bag of goodies that your new Galvarino trigger came in. Alright, and you see the cutout here, it goes forward. Line all that up. Now the first thing I like to do to make my life a whole lot easier is I will start this pin and get it lined up with the yoke. Oh, too far. Now if you knock it all the way through, no big deal. Take your 3/32, push it back, because what I like to do here is just barely have it into the yoke. Alright, so that when we go to put the spring in, it's going to be a whole lot easier on us. Alright, so take your needle nose pliers, your small needle nose. Big ones aren't going to work. You'll need some jeweler sets or something like that. Hemos will work just as well, just something small. Alright, you're going to press it in at the same time you're pressing the pin. Now it's going to kind of angle off like that, no big deal, because the next thing we're going to do is we're going to tilt that enough to get our flat head in there and make it even with the spring, so that we can now take the trigger bar, get it all lined up, get it started through. Once you get it to where you can line it up with the other yoke, which what I like to do is take and set it on the bench so I can actually see where I've got everything lined up, push the pin where it gets started, and then we're just going to seat it. Alright, just like that. Now you don't have to use your brass side. I find it easier to be the brass. Polymer will work just as well. But there you go. So we've got our trigger in. Now, the drop safety. How's it work in this pistol? As you can see, the yoke itself moves. So if you drop the pistol, instead of the bottom end pivoting when it lands, this goes back instead, and so it hits this shelf here and doesn't allow the trigger to actually swing all the way. Alright, now comes the super fun, complicated part. We're going to take our trigger and trigger bar, go ahead and set the trigger in there, the trigger bar sitting up in that part of the chassis there, and take your black trigger pivot pin, go ahead and put it in. Alright, now keep in mind that's all just in. There's no press fitting or anything, so I like to then take and set it on the bench block. Alright, we're going to take, your sear goes this direction. You see this cut out here, interacts with this disconnector. This is the actual sear point where the striker engages. Alright, so that's going to go there. Now again, make life easier, I like to get pins started. Now I'm going to set it down so we can take our sear spring and grab it about like that. And notice the arms are both to the rear. One goes up, one goes down. So then you're going to take and insert. You may have to re-grab it a couple different times just to get it all lined up. And push it in just like that. And as you're pushing, you can go ahead and release once you get the pin through it, and then just line everything up on this side, and you should be able to just go by hand. This is the trickiest part of the whole thing because you kind of got to have about 1,000,000 hands. But once you have it in there, make sure you hold the pins on the side. Alright, we know we've got it in right because the sear is springing back the way it should. Alright, so now we are ready to reassemble. And take your grip frame, line up your 2 notches, push it in. At the same time, you're going to push the trigger back until it gets into the opening. You're going to press down on the front end. Alright. And take our locking block. Now make sure that you have the cut where the guide rod is going to sit. When you have it all put together, it will sit just like that. Okay. So you want the circular cut to the front. That's keyed R for anybody who's wondering. Alright, we're going to drive our locking block pin back in. Alright, now you're not going to be able to test anything without the mag, so I like to put that in. Just make sure everything's moving. Leave the magazine in, trigger pulled to the rear. Drop your mag again. Put your takedown in. Alright. Empty mag. First thing we're going to do, we're going to pull the trigger. Striker should fall. We're going to hold the trigger to the rear. Rack the trigger. Hold down the slide lock release. You release the trigger. There's your reset. There's your pull. As you can see, other than just being a flat face, we've removed quite a bit. There's your reset. You've got about a 1/16 of pre-travel. And we've taken out probably, I'd say 15-20% of the post-travel. Alright. So pretty straightforward. Not necessarily an easy install, just because you need about 1,000,000 hands. But if you've ever been inside this, and as long as you follow the video, you'll be good to go. It's actually a pretty little easy gun to work on once you get used to the internals. But like I said, we've already got the +1. Now we have the Galvarino trigger. We're going to be making some other parts for these. We've been getting asked for them a lot. And it's honestly a great little pistol. I've been very impressed with it. And for an under $300 gun, you really can't go wrong. Fits well in the hand, shoots really nice. So we'll start working on guide rods and stuff here shortly. And probably some holsters. Do a dual compact and deluxe carry, the normal stuff we do. And so yeah, there you go, guys. Straightforward, not too bad. So if you got any questions, feel free to email me at tech, that's Tango Echo Charlie Hotel, at GallowayPrecision.com. Be sure to follow us on social media here on YouTube. Like, comment, and subscribe below. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Gunstreamer now, and Vimeo. Be sure to go by the website or the Facebook page and sign up for the newsletter. We send out a weekly flash sale, and once a month you'll get a newsletter saying what new products are going to be dropping over the next month. And that's going to be it, guys. So as always, be safe, be accurate, and God bless.